everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I just finished watching episode 2 of season 3 of The Mandalorian, and wow, another great episode, even better than the last episode, so hey, we're on a roll, let's keep doing this. And yeah, this one picks up, Dan is still trying to get to Mandalore and do his whole thing. Now, interestingly enough, they kind of sort of wrap something up that they set up in the first episode, and I thought it was going to be like not necessarily a season-long thing, but like, you know, it's gonna take a few episodes to get there. So he goes all the way back to Tatooine to his reliable, shady Pelimoto. She's always scheming. It's Boonta Eve here on Tatooine, and this oh god, the Greedo. What? I can't believe I'm forgetting the species name. Anyways, it's like he's trying to fix their speeder, and she's like, oh well, it's gonna take us a few days to get those parts, might have to get some get some more money, and might have to get some more up front, and she's kind of scheming with the Jawas. It's your usual thing. Anyways, it's funny, I enjoy her character. So he goes back to her, trying to get a memory unit to fix IG, right? And basically he explains entirely why he needs a droid to go to Mandalore, and he's basically like, okay, I need one that's designed for spelunking, that way they can test the environment down in the caves. And it's kind of funny because one thing that I saw several people mention was like, why does he need an IG unit? Why does he want IG back now? What's up with this? What's up with that? And they saw this as like some big flaw in the episode, and in the first episode, I mean. And it's kind of funny that, like, I don't know, it's if they don't explain something in, especially in the first episode of the season, maybe just wait a little bit and they'll explain why he wants this. You know what I mean? So it was just funny. Like, that was like a big thing in the first episode. Some people were like, why does he want IG? It's like, well, now we know exactly why he wanted IG. Okay, he wanted a droid that could go spelunking, that could test the environment, a droid that he trusts. Plus, IG's just his best friend, so I don't know why this was such a... Anyways, moving on. So Pelimoto convinced him to take R5, right? So it's like, okay, R5 has moved on from just a cameo, like, oh yeah, from A New Hope. Now R5 is like an actual thing that's just being used in the plot. So R5 goes with him to Mandalore, and they test the caves, and he disappears, and we have like these, what I can only describe as the Morlock creatures from the Time Machine. I don't know, these are probably creatures that existed in Legends before this, but I have never heard of these things. But they are in the caves of Mandalore. They're just hanging around. They got spears. And so Mandalore goes down there, he takes out a couple of them. We see that the Darksaber is still really heavy for him to use, and this is going to be important later. But he takes out a couple of them, and then he gets trapped by this crazy looking creature that they don't explain what this is, and I guess it doesn't really matter, like you can say it's just a monster that's down there. It is what I can only describe as a General Grievous type thing, but times 5, General Grievous times 5, where it is just like an eyeball with a brain inside of a little tiny robot that's inside of its own skeletal structure, kind of like General Grievous, but then it's also inside this even bigger droid capture cage thing. Anyways, he gets captured, and so Grogu has to get all the way back to the ship, and luckily, of course, now he's got R5 there. He can just kind of point out like, oh yeah, take me to Bo-Katan's moon. And they did a great job of explaining like, okay, here's Mandalore, I was born on the moon right over there, and they showed to us Concordia, and then Bo-Katan, the place that we visited last episode, it's right over there. So like they're easily explaining this to the audience that like these are not places that are crazy far away. These are like all within the same distance of each other. So he goes back to Bo-Katan's, and of course I know people are going to be memeing on this because they kind of memed on it last episode. Bo-Katan is still sitting in that chair entirely alone, and she just hangs out there. At least she looks more comfortable. People were making fun of how she was sitting last episode, and there was this really great TikTok made about it. Anyways, so she's sitting there, and Grogu shows up, and at first she's here to tell Mandalorian off. She's like, look, I told you I want to be left alone, I want to sit in my big chair, I'm all sad. But it's Grogu, and she's like, okay, what happened to him? So they go back to Mandalore, and of course she manages to get all the way down there, and here she gives for a general audience member, for someone who, you know, didn't watch Clone Wars and Rebels and is not familiar with Bo-Katan's whole deal, you know, this must have been an epic lore dump, because she tells Grogu, like, oh yeah, I used to rule this place, and then later on, after she rescues Mando from this, you know, General Grievous looking creature, she's like, oh yeah, I was a princess and my dad was there, and we recited the creed in front of everyone, and it was this whole big ceremony. And you know, she makes it clear that she doesn't think that there's anything mystical or magical about, you know, her people's, you know, ancient cultures and all that, right? It was just all ceremony, you know. And it's just, this must have been like a crazy lore dump. She even like emphasizes, like, it wasn't actually that long ago that Mandalore was like a normal civilization. It didn't look like this crazy, you know, post-apocalypse looking place now. You know, obviously we saw that in Book of Boba Fett. We saw the giant explosions that made it look like the way it does now. But yeah, just for people who had not known much about Bo-Katan, this must have been like a crazy, just so much information thrown at you at once. And then they get down to the waters, and she reads like this plaque talking about how, like, oh yeah, there was Mandalore the Great, who was our ancient ruler, and he tamed the mythosaur, and that's why we got that little skull symbol on all our stuff. And you know, it just, so much stuff is happening. Anyways, Din goes down to the water, and he's doing his creed thing, and then of course I don't know if he just fell or if he got pulled down. I'm not sure exactly what happened there. If he just didn't realize there was like another step, and he fell too fast, and he's drowning now. So once again, Bo-Katan dives in to save him, which is interesting to note. Bo-Katan saves him twice, and she goes in the water too. So like, even though she doesn't believe in the whole, you know, do your baptism in the waters of Mandalore, all that, she did go in the water. So I'm just putting that out there. She did go in the water. And I forgot to mention this, when she is saving Din from General Grievous over there, she wields the Darksaber for a minute, and she does not feel the weight of it. You know, it's not heavy for her at all. So, you know, again, just interesting things there. Does that mean Bo-Katan is the rightful ruler? Does that mean that she, you know, she should be leading everyone? Maybe, you know, because we see that she, you know, she can wield the saber, and she got in the waters. So it's like, technically she's fulfilled all the things that, you know, some of these, you know, more culty types, you know, they might be like, okay, actually, you know what, you did kind of earn it. So I don't know, just interesting to put out there. Anyway, she saves Din, she goes in the water, and of course they see a giant mythosaur, which she's freaking out by. She's like, what? You know, because again, she didn't believe they ever existed, or she just thought it was like something that went extinct, you know, thousands of years ago, right? So yeah, there's been a mythosaur in these waters this whole time, which is interesting because now it wakes up. And again, it's only waking up because you know, she's right there and she's shining the light at it. But it's like, if that thing's been there for thousands of years, you know, it could have woken up before this, but it never did, you know, not even when the explosions happened, right? So here we go. There's been a mythosaur on Mandalore underneath the waters this whole time. So, and that's where the episode ends. Really interesting stuff going on here. You know, I don't know if this is the first time we've ever gotten a mention of Bo-Katan's father. You know, like, I guess you would surmise that he was the king of Mandalore. Because obviously Satine became like the Duchess of Mandalore, and she was the ruler during Clone Wars. But I don't think they've ever mentioned her father before, have they? Maybe they did. I don't remember that ever happening. But in any case, it was really interesting. They emphasized, you know, Din's even like, oh, he seems interesting, I would have liked to meet him. She's like, yeah, he died, you know, fighting for Mandalore. And so I'm like, okay, they're talking a lot about her dad for some reason. That's interesting. I would have thought, you know, again, some people might be frustrated, they did not mention Satine Kryze, her sister, the Duchess of Mandalore, who, like, you know, she was like a big player in the Clone Wars. They didn't like mention her at all by name, which, you know, for an episode where they're going all into Bo-Katan's deal and her family's deal, they didn't mention her sister's name, which that's interesting, you know. And I guess maybe, you know, maybe there's not necessarily a reason to specifically mention her, I guess, but it just seemed interesting, right? But she did point out, like, hey, I've met quite a few Jedi, you know, there was a moment where we were actually pretty good friends, you know, her and Ahsoka and Obi-Wan and all that. So anyways, this was just a really great episode. They're moving along. They explained things that people were having issues with, like, why does he want IG? It's like, well, now we know. Now, of course, it is still kind of set up that eventually he will get that memory circuit. You know, I'm sure Pelimoto will contact him some episode later saying, like, hey, I actually managed to get one of those memory circuits if you wanted it, you know. I'm sure he's gonna have to go return R5, right? Like, I don't think he's keeping R5, or maybe he is. I guess he did buy R5, didn't he? Did he buy it, or is he just borrowing it? I don't know. He might own R5 now. In any case, yeah, they've seen a mythosaur, and, you know, whatever the implications of that are, because wasn't there something of, like, you know, the creed says that the mythosaur will awaken or something like that? Wasn't that a thing? Wasn't that part of it? So, you know, again, both Din and Bo-Katan were in that water, and, you know, I guess the mythosaur technically woke up when both of them were there. So it's like, is this gonna be like a sort of, you know, both of us get to rule Mandalore, or is this the show telling us that, like, yeah, Bo-Katan is the one who should be ruling this place, you know? Like, maybe that might be it, you know. And maybe this is just like the whole personal journey for her of, like, she doesn't believe in all this stuff, but, you know, maybe she regains some kind of faith in, like, the mystical side of things. I don't know. I don't know exactly where this is headed, but yeah, really interesting stuff. I'm glad that they did touch on Bo-Katan's whole thing, because I feel like, for, you know, obviously I can't, I just have to pretend like, okay, I have to imagine I don't know all the Clone Wars and Rebel stuff. You know, who is Bo-Katan as a character without my prior knowledge of these things? And I feel like we barely know anything. So I'm glad they did touch on all that. Yeah, another great episode. And I still gotta watch The Bad Batch, and that's supposed to be a good episode too, so we'll find out. Alright, I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye.